Chapter 2. The Apartment with No Reflection. 3 nights after the parking garage, Lady Seraphine gave me another assignment. A tenant has stopped answering the landlord, she said, without looking up from the glass of dark tea in her hand. Fifth floor, apartment 512. That was all. No explanation. No warning. The building stood in the oldest part of the city, squeezed between a closed pharmacy and a church whose bells no longer worked. Rain slid down the windows like black veins. The lobby lights flickered every few seconds, and the security guard's chair sat empty behind the desk. The elevator wouldn't go above the fourth floor. I took the stairs. By the time I reached the fifth floor, I could hear a television playing somewhere down the hall. The sound was warped, like voices underwater. Apartment 512's door was already open. Inside, every light was on. The apartment looked normal at first. Dishes in the sink, shoes by the door, a half finished cup of coffee on the table, but the television showed only static, and every mirror in the room had been covered with bed sheets. Except one. A tall mirror stood at the end of the hallway, its frame polished so cleanly it seemed to swallow the light around it. The glass itself looked too deep, as if there were a room behind it with no walls. When I stepped closer, I caught a faint smell from it. Cold metal, wet plaster, and something sweetly rotten, like flowers left in a sealed drawer. I walked toward it. My reflection moved. I hadn't. At first it was only a delay, a fraction of a second too slow. Then the thing in the mirror smiled at me. Slowly, wrongly. Its mouth stretched wider than mine should have been able to, the corners pulling until the skin at its cheeks looked thin and strained, almost translucent. Its teeth were too even, too white, as if they had been filed down to points and polished. Then it pressed one hand against the glass from the inside. The surface dimmed around its palm and the mirror rippled like skin touched by heat. Then it stepped out. It did not emerge all at once. First came its fingers, long and damp looking, leaving streaks on the glass that vanished a moment later. Then its wrist, then the narrow slope of its shoulder, as if it were being squeezed through a wound in the air. The sound it made was not a splash or a crack, but a soft, wet tearing, like fabric being pulled apart under water. When its head finally cleared the frame, I saw that its eyes were not simply black. They were glossy and depthless, like oil pooled over a grave. No whites, no pupils, just two dark, shining hollows that caught the room's light and gave nothing back. It looked exactly like me, except wrong in every detail that mattered. Its skin had a gray, waxy cast stretched too tightly over the bones of its face. The veins at its temples stood out in thin blue threads. Its fingers twitched with tiny insect-like jerks. The air around it smelled like damp earth and something long buried. "She shouldn't have sent you here," it whispered with my voice. The apartment door slammed shut behind me. The creature lunged. Its hands were cold enough to burn, and when its fingers closed around my arm I felt a sharp, numbing sting, as if frost had bitten straight through my skin. I hit the wall hard, and the hallway lights exploded above us. For a moment the room went dark, and I felt its breath on my face, shallow, sour, and strangely hollow, like air moving through an empty jar. Its mouth opened near my throat, and I saw that its tongue was split at the tip, blackened as if stained by old blood. Then I heard heels on the floorboards, unhurried, certain. Lady Seraphine entered the hallway as if she had been expected there all along, her black coat moving behind her like a shadow that had learned to walk. The air seemed to still around her. Even the television hissed lower. The creature froze the instant it saw her. "No," it whispered. She tilted her head, studying it with calm, almost clinical interest. "You crawled out of a mirror that belonged to me." The thing wearing my face tried to run, but it never reached the door. Every mirror in the apartment shattered at once. Glass burst outward like a flock of knives, and the shards drove into the creature before it could escape, pinning its shoulders, arms, and legs to the wall. The creature screamed as they hit it, a raw, splitting cry that seemed to come from somewhere deeper than its throat. Cracks raced across its skin in sharp black lines, branching from its eyes, splitting its cheeks, crawling down its neck and over its hands. The surface of it began to fail in pieces, as if the body were only a thin shell over something darker and more frantic beneath. Where the fractures opened, I saw flashes of movement, wet, reflective shapes shifting under the skin, too quick to make sense of. Lady Seraphine raised one hand. The cracks widened. The creature convulsed, straining against the glass that held it, its jaw unhinging with a sound like glass grinding against stone. Its face split from temple to chin, and for one terrible second I saw not flesh, but a slick, mirror bright interior full of warped reflections. My own eye, the hallway lights, Lady Seraphine's silhouette, all bent and trapped inside it. Then the whole thing came apart. Its body broke into hundreds of glittering fragments that clattered across the floor, each shard still carrying a sliver of its face, its mouth, its black eyes. The pieces twitched once, then dulled, the shine draining out of them as they dissolved into gray dust that smelled faintly of rust and wet ash. Silence returned. She stepped over the dust and straightened my collar with two gloved fingers, as if correcting a mistake only she could see. "You attract interesting things," she said softly. I looked at the ruined hallway. Was that a ghost? Her faint smile returned, small and unreadable. Worse. Then she glanced toward the dark window at the end of the apartment, where the rain had begun to slide upward instead of down. "And now," she said, her voice almost gentle, "it knows your face too? Try not to let it learn the rest,